Hey everyone, welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw. I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Quickly want to shout out my everydayers who are here every day. A shout out to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Today we have a special episode of Locked On Sun Devils and our first crossover Thursday edition of the Big 12 season. We are joined by Locked On Texas Tech host Chris Level. Me and him are going to go back and forth. We're going to talk about ASU versus Texas Tech. We got players to watch. We got the importance of this game, how to win, and all of that good stuff. I'm going to cut you over there in just a moment. Before we get that far, I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That offer runs out on September 22nd, so make sure that you hop on that. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now then, we are going to go ahead and jump over to this crossover episode. I will see you there, ladies. It is crossover Thursday, and Locked On Sun Devils is hanging out with Locked On Texas Tech to discuss this Saturday's Big 12 matchup.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast and the Locked On Texas Tech podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Wherever you are tuning into your podcast, make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever these two shows make new content. And of course, today we are making content together. I am joined with Chris Level over from Locked On Texas Tech. Chris, how are you doing today, my friend?
Richie, I'm doing wonderful. Ready for the Sun Devils to come to the 806, and let's get Big 12 play underway. What do you say?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm nervous. It's a brand new era for Arizona State. Obviously, this is our first year in the Big 12. We've gone to Texas a handful of times, but never for conference games. So this is new territory for us. And starting in Lubbock is not going to be easy. I remember when the schedule got released, we started on the road. We start against Texas Tech. I was like, that feels like a loss. I am hopefully coming around to it with the way that Arizona State has started the season, but Texas Tech's a good team.
Yeah, and they've been a bit Jekyll and Hyde to start the season. It's like, will the real Red Raiders please stand up? Because I don't know. I've seen door number 1, I've seen door number 2, and I've seen door number 3. I don't know what door will be opened on Saturday when Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham show up. But because they've gotten all these 3 games that they've played so far have been very different. I know that Arizona State comes in because let's be honest, Richie, Arizona State's one of the best stories in the Big 12 so far. Based on preseason expectations, which everybody kind of had this group of teams that just weren't going to contend or weren't going to be, they've already nuked that and I think surprised a lot of folks. I don't know. I think it's fair to say I don't know how good their schedule has been, but you win them, it doesn't matter. You go hammer an SEC team, it doesn't matter. And I think for Texas Tech, like Abilene Christian right up the road, and you play well in some aspects, but in other ways, it's like you were lucky to get out of there with a win. And you go up to Washington State, and you just played terrible, turned it over, penalized, and all those things, and then you just kind of unload on North Texas, which you had a former player for Texas Tech as the head coach at North Texas. He played receiver for Mike Leach, and you scored 21 points in 52 seconds and you score 52 and a half. I had not seen that before. So, yeah, I don't know what we get, but I have a feeling I know what I'm going to get from Kenny Dillingham's boys, and that's a tough physical football team with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and, I think that's a good place for us to start is talking about these key players that are going to impact the game. I've got a couple on offense, a couple on defense that I'm looking at. Obviously, it starts with the quarterback, Sam Leavitt. He is going into his 4th game with Arizona State. He has shown off some outstanding abilities in his very short time with the Sun Devils. He's an up and down passer. You really like the good that he brings out, but there's a lot of work to be done with the touch passing, The deep ball isn't really there yet. You want to see the consistency on a down-to-down basis. The good news is when things break down, he is a true dual threat quarterback. He can take off and run, and he can beat you for big gains. He had a 40-yard run last week against Texas State. He's averaging probably about 40 to 50 rushing yards a game right now. That's with the sack yards included too. He's very special on offense, and he's going to be complemented by running back Cam Scatterbo, who is one of the best kept secrets in the country right now. He's certainly one of the better running backs in the Big 12 and is off to a ridiculous start to the year. The offense goes through him. And if Sam Leavitt is going to have success, if this offense is going to have success, they need to make sure that Cameron Scatterbo is getting the ball early and often. And then
and I think what's fascinating about this game to me is, as I've looked at it, I really think that, I don't know if these teams are mirror images, but I think that the defensive coordinators are saying the same thing about what they must do. Because what I hear you saying is exactly how I feel about Taj Brooks and the way he impacts the game, or his importance level, and the way if he gets going. Because I think if these two running backs, if they are able to establish things early, it opens it all up. Yep. If not, it's going to put it on Baron Morton or Sam Leavitt. And I think if you're either defensive coordinator, that's what you ultimately want to do. Let's see whose arm can win this game and do it consistently, because we know it may not go well if we let these two kids just run like crazy and start establishing the run, and then it opens up play action and all that stuff. So if I'm either a defensive coordinator coming to this game, I'm really saying we have to get that running game limited or stopped, and let's see what these quarterbacks can do if they are forced to beat us with their arm consistently. Not that, either guy's going to be able to hit some shots and things like that, but can you do it consistently for 4 quarters? But because I think Scatterbo and Brooks are really in so many ways the same running back. They lack elite speed. They run through tacklers. They fall forward. They are tough, hard-nosed, that they're going to pick up the blitz. They're going to do all the dirty work, but they're not going to bust you and then go for 80. It's just not really what their game is necessarily going to be. But now you need a tough 8 yards on a 3rd and 6 or whatever. You might just get it, and they're going to get theirs at the end of the day. But I think that it's fascinating. Now, for Texas Tech, Baron Morton's not necessarily going to tuck it and go as much as Leavitt will, because I know from talking to Tim DeRuyter a bunch in media availability that he's done this week, that's their primary concern. Yeah, you got to stop Scatterbo, but then we can't overrun, rushing the passer, because we saw the John Mateer show in Pullman, Washington a couple of weeks ago.
He's also pretty good.
He's very good. And shockingly, Washington State, are they better off with him at QB than they were with Cam Ward? I can't even see that.
It's a fun debate.
But it's a maybe at this point. But, and so Barron has got a good arm. He's got a lot of weapons around him, one of which obviously played at Arizona State last year.
Jalen Conyers.
That's right. And the Arizona State fans will see he has had nothing but great things to say about his time at Arizona State, but he's from right up the road. And I think he would have loved to have come to Texas Tech out of high school, had that worked out better. So, but he's had nothing but positive things to say about Coach Dillingham and Arizona State. But he's having fun and being closer to family and all that. But they've lined him up in the backfield, which I know you guys have seen before. They've thrown it to him in the red zone, which I know you guys have seen before. So there's a lot of good skill around Baron Morton. But it's really the players are the same for these teams. It's the running backs and the QB. And which duo or maybe which QB plays better could ultimately decide this thing.
Would not be surprised. And good news for Jalen Conyers. There's a lot of love here for him as well. I know I speak on behalf of a lot of Sun Devil fans that we didn't want to see him go, but you can't blame the guy for wanting to get back closer to family. He'd mentioned on his way out that Texas Tech was one of the places that he always wanted to be at. So very happy for him. Defensively, the Sun Devils definitely have their work cut out for them. The good news is they are able to make adjustments and they are able to shut down the run. That has not been one of the issues for them this year, but you also haven't played a running back like Taj Brooks yet, which is where it's going to be really important for linebacker Keyshawn Elliott and for safety / nickel corner, whatever you want to call him, Shamari Simmons, to be able to plug up the running lane. Shamari has been unbelievable this year, playing inside at the nickel and being able to set the edge. The interior of the defensive line is so big and strong, and then Keyshawn Elliott's right behind him to make the tackles. You're seeing a lot of running backs being forced to bounce things outside, but then Shamari is so fast that he just keeps pushing you outside, and eventually, when you're running east and west, you're going to run out of real estate, and that's when the defense is going to be able to swarm you. This is going to be the key for them, is these two players just being able to help manage the run. I don't know if you're going to be able to slow down the passing attack as of now. ASU is still kind of wrinkling or ironing out the wrinkles in their secondary for the coverage part. But if you are able to find a way to slow down Taj Brooks, he's one of those guys, I don't think you stop him. You just find a way to contain him as best as you can. You find a way to do that. There should be a way on defense for you to win this game, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think for the Red Raiders and Coach DeRuiter on the defensive side, it's two interior linebackers that I guess I would point out, Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts, because I think they will be tasked with one, the scataboo part of this and what he can do in the run game. But I think equally, and maybe if not more important, is do you employ one of those guys as a spy at times on somebody like Sam Levitt and just ensure that, okay, he can't hit us with one of these 40-yarders, as you mentioned, versus Texas State, or we've got, we can somewhat keep him in check. But I think it's been a mixed bag so far defensively for Texas Tech. There's a lot of youth there. They've got 4 guys from the defense last year that are playing in the NFL now. And it's just, they're very talented. I think their speed, they're just very young. And in some places where they're old, these are new pieces via the portal. So they're still new here. But I think they've gotten a bit better as the weeks have gone along. They obviously played their best game against North Texas defensively. But I tell you what the other connection is. You realize who Jordan Tyson, your leading receiver, he's related to Jalen Tyson, who played basketball here 2 years ago.
Oh, interesting.
Jalen Tyson left. He left via the portal 2 years ago and then went to Cal, and then now he was a first-round draft pick. So there's a bit of a connection there. You've also got Cade Briggs on the offensive line, who was here in Joey McGuire's first year. That is, I think he got dinged up against Texas State, but he played some offensive line here 2 years ago. So there's a few more connections. But back to the original thing, I'm going to put this on the two interior linebackers, Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts, as far as the key on kind of the chess match there on what you're trying to get done and what you're trying to stop. But again, not going to be easy.
No, not at all. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff that's hanging on this game. This is a very important game for both programs. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast and the Locked On Texas Tech podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we've got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, that's right around the corner, so make sure you capitalize on this. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game out of market. All you need to have is a Google account and a current form of payment you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Hey there, college football fans. Have you heard about ROY? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Well, ROY changes the NIL game for fans. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive access to exclusive content from an athlete, such as their announcement decisions, behind the scenes footage, and other personal reflections, all of which are available only to the fans who support the athletes. By using Roy, fans not only support athletes financially, but can be a part of the name, image, likeness, NIL journey, helping them succeed both on and off the field. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter the referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Just visit roy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android. Start making an impact on your favorite team. Again, use that referral code Locked On for that opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit roy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Back into our conversation now. Let's talk about the importance of this game for both Arizona State and for Texas Tech. And I'll hand it right over to you, Chris Level from Texas, or Locked On Texas Tech, to start this conversation. What's on the line here for Texas Tech going into this?
Well, you're still trying to get the fan base back on the same page after the debacle in Pullman a couple weeks ago, and I think there's a good vibe around here right now. And I don't. You may feel differently, but I just feel like all the pressure in this game is on Texas Tech because you're at home. And there's not much margin for error in this league race. If you're going to remain relevant in the conference championship hunt, you've got to win your home games, one. And two, there's just not many slip-ups you can afford if you ultimately want to remain relevant into this thing into November. If you're looking at it from you got a chance to make some hay. The next 3 of your 4 games, if you're Texas Tech, you host Arizona State, you host Cincinnati, then we come out to your neck of the woods and face those darn Wildcats. That's right. And then you're back home and you face Baylor. So 3 of your next 4 are at home. If you can and there's been a lot of road issues in his tenure. I don't think you've been very good at all on the road. You've been 3-9, I think is the record, but you've been 12-3 at home. And your only losses there are to Baylor 2 years ago, and they were picked to win the league. And then last year you lost to top 10 ranked Oregon by 1 score. And then against Kansas State last year when your quarterback got hurt at the end of the first half and could not finish the game, and you had a true freshman finish out the game. So those are the only 3 losses at home in his tenure. But that's why, to me, I just feel like the pressure is on the Red Raiders here to win. You should win it. You're supposed to win it. The pressure's on you to win it because you are at home. And you're trying to get back. I don't think you can afford, many of these losses, especially with home games, especially early on in the race, because you would be asking, okay, we've gotten our slip up out of the way. Now you're going to have to reel off 6, 7, 8 in a row to have a chance to be in Arlington in December, because this is the tournament now. The tournament starts. All the stuff that we've seen in the first 3 weeks, it was fun. It matters. It counts, and you prepared for it and all those things. But now this matters a bit more. But I think the home factor certainly puts the pressure on the Red Raiders.
Yep, and this is a lot of pressure on the Sun Devils too, to be able to go out on the road and find a crucial road win. They went to San Marcos on last Thursday, a week ago from when we are having this podcast out, and they struggled at first. In the first half, it was very back and forth. Second half, they were able to figure it out, quiet that crowd down. Now, Lubbock is a completely different beast, but you got a little bit of a taste of what it's like to play college football in Texas. Again, it's very different from Lubbock to San Marcos, but at least you have some kind of idea of what you're going up against. Now,
it's like the Party School Bowl.
Yes.
Yes.
That was exactly it.
And we could even roll with Party School Bowl 2.0 or Part 2. I don't know, because the Red Raiders, I mean, they throw the tortillas, they drink the beer.
Oh, I love that.
They get after it here. I mean, so I don't know with all due respect, I don't know if Texas State, boy, they are there's some famous partying going on in San Marcos. The river flows through and all that stuff. And then I've been to Tempe multiple times. I'm fortunate enough to be on the broadcast team for Tech basketball and for Tech football. So I've been to Tempe for both sports. And people, you live in a wonderful city. I could not have gone to college there. There's way too many distractions. It's 2
Mill
hours
Avenue.
from Vegas. The sun never. I feel like the sun never goes down. What's the main street that everything's
Mill
on?
Avenue. Yep.
Yes. I bow down to the greatness of that lovely avenue. It is awesome. I bet Herm Edwards wasn't spending much time there, but I think that Arizona State, man, fun place to go visit. And I would have failed out. I just will tell you right now. But yeah, so we can do Party Bowl 2.0 if you want to on this one.
I can dig it. I can dig Party Bowl 2.0. ASU is looking for that statement win on the road. Texas State, that's a good start. Texas Tech, that's one that should be able to get the attention of a lot of people. You're starting off the year 3-0. This is the team that was picked to finish last in the Big 12. This is a team that has won 3 games in each of the last 2 seasons. So you have matched your win total in the first 3 games of the year. That's impressive. Now you need to start rattling off some conference wins. These are the ones that people are going to care about. If you find a way to start conference play 1-0 on the road in your first year in the Big 12, this is such a confidence builder for Arizona State. And it's something that could really start to snowball things. And you go from, is this a fluky 3-0 team to, oh, wow, they're 4-0 and they've got a couple really good wins, including a big road win against one of the more established teams in the Big 12, because Texas Tech has been there a lot longer than some of the other teams that have recently joined. It'd be a really good statement for ASU to come out and get that game. But obviously, I know you would agree with this for Texas Tech. This is equally just as important for the Red Raiders to be able to come out and get that win and start off the year 1-0 in conference play.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not where you play people, and it can be about that, as we talked about a second ago, but sometimes too it's when you play people. I thought it was interesting because Coach Dillingham earlier in the week, he's talking about that Texas State game, and he was just like, we played terrible. I mean, I coached a bad game. I mean, we were penalized. We tried to do this, we were that. We just got to get a lot better. And hey, Coach, I know what you're doing. You're trying to keep your guys grounded. You're trying to keep them from reading the newspaper clippings and all that stuff. And
oh my God, yes.
This is the psychology of being a coach these days. And I appreciated it because I knew exactly where he was coming from on it. You got to keep them. You always want to win and have coaching points. That's like the ideal scenario. And I could see what he was doing there. But this is. And I also heard him mention it was like, this is a first. This is his history, really. This is the first Big 12 game for Arizona State in their school's history. And, I mean, the Red Raiders have been in the Border Conference. They've been in the Southwest Conference. They've been in the Big 12 since 1996. Obviously, this is version 4.0 or 5.0, I guess,
least, yeah.
of the Big 12. Yeah, and there's 16 teams, even though everybody's got a Roman numeral 12 rolling around on their sleeve and everything like that. Yeah, that's right. So, but for both of these teams, it's really about starting off the right way, and it's all in front of you. You've got a full 9-game slate ahead of you, and you want to get off on because I mean, for Arizona State to come in here, if you get a road win, you're going to be ranked. I mean, I was surprised that the Arizona State wasn't ranked already, and I don't agree with all the SEC favoritism in the poll.
Texas A&M, dude, that drives me nuts.
And the Notre Dame favoritism in the poll, it's disgusting. And unfortunately, it matters. Like where those rankings are, they do matter. I used to want to just wad the poll up and throw it away, but it matters. But I really felt like Arizona State would be ranked. I know Coach McGuire felt the same. But if you're Texas Tech, you want to get back because around here they've been 6-2 in November with Joey at the helm, but they've really struggled at times out of the gate. This is the first time that they've really had a schedule on paper that is home, like front loaded at home, and it just doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't get off to a decent start record wise. But you got to go do it. You got to go do it, and easier said than done, because I don't think anybody felt like when you're looking at this thing back in August, that Arizona State was going to be 3-0 and looking as good as they did. But that's sports. That's why we love it so much, because we think we know what we're going to get, and sometimes you don't. So it should be really, really fun at 2:30 on Saturday at Jones AT&T Stadium.
Classic. The more you think you know, the less you know. Our question now is, how do you win this game? We're going to discuss that as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Texas Tech, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events, not just sports, even easier than before. Game Time Picks will filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When you use Game Time, make sure that you use those Game Time Picks, because it's going to curate and make things easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They're all-in pricing feature. Toggle this. It's going to show you the total up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout this way. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. You can get the lowest price guarantee as well, which means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. One last time, wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get that update whenever these two shows post new content. Chris, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up with how you win this game. And I will start for ASU, and I think it's three things here. The first, you got to win the turnover battle. Now, even if that's a Texas Tech has 1 turnover and ASU has 0 turnovers, perfect. Even if it's 0-0, even if you don't allow any turnovers, you just need to find a way to minimize your mistakes. This game, more than likely, is not even so much going to come down to who has the ball last. It's going to come down to who makes the most of extra opportunities. So if Arizona State does get an interception, if you go 3 and out, that's a really bad missed opportunity for you to try and get points, because Texas Tech can go right down the field and put up 6 and put up 3, whatever. There's a chance that a high-flying Red Raiders offense can make you pay if you don't capitalize on that. So if you get 1 turnover, if you get 5 turnovers, find a way to make the most out of those. You got to find stops on defense too. That's the second thing here. This was the difference in the first half against Texas State last week and the second half against Texas State. First half, they got run over. It was very quickly a 21-7 ball game in favor of the Bobcats because defense couldn't get stops. You had 3rd and longs, and I'm talking like 10 plus yards that they were converting with ease. They were converting 4th downs. They were getting huge touchdown plays. There was blown coverage. There was a lot of stuff that was wrong. But in the second half, you made adjustments. And within the last about 20 minutes of game time, it felt like Texas State just could not find any consistency. Last 3 drives of the game for Texas State ended with an interception, a forced fumble, and a stop on 4th down. The defense can figure it out. You just need to make sure that you're playing on your A game. And again, you need to play like this for all 4 quarters. If you do the same thing last week and you have a great first half and a bad second half, there's a chance that Texas Tech is just going to lead you by a lot. The last key to victory here for me is you need to take advantage of those extra drives. I already touched on this a little bit, so I won't waste too much time. But whenever you get those extra chances, whether it's turnovers or anything else, any extra opportunity, find a way to make the most of it. Even if you don't get a point off of that drive, don't go 3 and out. Maybe find a way to take 4 minutes off the clock and then pin Texas Tech deep. just find a way to take the most of every opportunity that you have on offense.
First key for me, hope that Kalen Balaj isn't playing.
I don't think he's going to be out there this time.
I don't know if you remember that night.
I do.
I was
That was a good time.
I do. Yeah, I do the sideline stuff for the radio broadcast, and I'm with that night in Tempe, and Pat Mahomes is just doing all he can.
Yes, he
to
was.
keep his team in the game. I mean, unbelievable. And Kalen Balaj is just like, another touchdown, and then another one, and then another one. And then Pat's like, damn, boys, I can't keep up. I'm like, what is going on? So, so key number one, hope Kalen Balaj isn't playing. So, okay, I think I'm good there. No, all kidding aside, I think in games like this, are we going to get a shootout? Are we going to get a low-scoring game? I don't know if we have a feel for what kind of game you're going to get into just yet. It may be more of a grind. It could be more of a shootout of sorts, because nobody's afraid of that in Lubbock, based on kind of the identity of what this football program has been over the last 20 plus years. But I think that it would be key for Texas Tech to get an early lead. I'd be curious to know, could Arizona State do it 2 weeks in a row where they have to come back from behind and Leavitt really have to open it up and throw it, and you're playing from behind, and you have to get away from maybe some of that run game. I don't know, and I don't know what that lead looks like. Am I talking 14 or 17 point lead? I don't know what you're talking here, but I think playing from in front would certainly behoove you if you're the Red Raiders. I think the other thing to pay attention to in this one is special teams. The Red Raiders are rotating kickers right now. They've both been perfect, knock on wood, if you're a Texas Tech fan. They haven't really decided who the kicker is going to be, so they're just letting them both go out there, and they both have knocked through their field goals and extra points and all this stuff. But they have a really good return game. Josh Kelly is a stud receiver that transferred from Washington State, had about 1,000 yards last year. He's the punt returner. Dre McCray is an all Big 12 punt returner this year. I think teams have already he's already had two huge returns this year, and now teams have started to do the sky kick and the pooch kick and kind of kick it away. But is there a play to be made in special teams that kind of tilts this thing or creates an extra possession, shortens the field? I don't know. The other thing that I think is interesting as I looked at this, Arizona State's really fascinating in the red zone on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they've given up, I think, 7 trips inside the red zone, and teams have scored touchdowns 6 times, 6 out of 7. That's not a percentage you want to hang your hat on.
Not ideal.
Yeah. Offensively, they've gotten in the red zone 14 times and have only scored 7 touchdowns. So which team, and I'm looking at this from a Red Raiders standpoint too, but like, which team can finish drives? Which team can actually get into the end zone and not have to settle for 3 and things like that, and build only? Because you mentioned it earlier, Richie, about complementary football and capitalizing. Okay, when one side of the ball does this, can the offense take a turnover and then do something with it, or do you just go 3 and out and give it right back? And I think that some of that is because what was the stat this summer? 42% of Big 12 games last year were 1 score. So
wow.
42% of Big 12 games were 1-score games. And so I think that is so important in these conference games now that we're in the league. The difference between 3 and 7 is massive. Could ultimately decide if you can't convert a 3rd down and you have to kick it versus if you can punch it in the end zone. That's enough to decide the game in any one of these drives. And we don't know which one it would be, but I think that is something I'm looking at too. So be special on special teams, get a lead, and obviously play with that and see if that puts the ASU in a bind. And then just be good in the red zone.
I think that would just about do it. And all I know, and this is not betting advice, ladies and gentlemen, me personally, I'm taking the over in this game. Whatever it is, you could put it at 150 points. I'm probably taking the over. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. But of course, now that I have said that, we're going to get a 20-17 ball game. But Chris, I appreciate you joining me today for this crossover edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, as well as the Locked On Texas Tech podcast. I want to shout out the amazing Whataburger, because we have it out here, and I showed this off to Chris as we were getting started, and he told me, it was like, you got to make sure that you let them know. So if I can endear myself to any Texas people out there, Whataburger is great. It is absolutely phenomenal. There's one around the corner from my house. It's very difficult for me to not stop by there when I'm out, and today I lost that battle.
I would say that you have earned newfound respect with the Texas Tech fans with your orange and white striped cup there. Whataburger is number one in our lovely state, and that's well done. I mean, you are good people, Richie. If you're rolling with the Whataburger, it means I can trust you. I can trust you. So, but hey, man, I appreciate you hosting this. This was a good time. We'll do this again, maybe when basketball rolls around, or when the Sun Devils and the Red Raiders lock up on football next year, whatever. Certainly enjoyed it. Keep hope alive, everybody out there. Be nice to everybody. If your fans are coming to Lubbock, hopefully everybody's nice to you. Go get some Evie Mae's barbecue if you're in town. That's the spot. They're only open for lunch on Friday or Saturday. It's a place that you'll go to, and they're, until they sell out, they're good, but you got to get there early. So, but hopefully your fans, if they're coming out this way, enjoy themselves, and hopefully it's a good football game Saturday afternoon.
My dad will be out there, so I will let him know to check out that barbecue.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Let's go Sun Devils. Let's make it a close game. Let's make it a fun game. And after this weekend, let's be best friends with Texas Tech, because I don't see any problem with them right now.
Is it guns up or forks up? I don't know.
Forks up.
Yeah. Okay. Guns up. Yeah. There you go. All right, man. Appreciate the time, man.
Absolutely. I will see you guys tomorrow. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.